Well, ladies and gentlemen, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. The Rotten Tomatoes score has been revealed, and it's slowly going down, actually. It opened on Friday at 91%, and it's just been declining. Now, we're currently at 78%, which is only 3% higher than what it needs to be deemed fresh. It's actually the lowest rated in the, I guess you could say, franchise, of the three movies. A bit of a shame, I'm not lording over this, going, ha ha ha, you screw Marvel. I quite like Guardians of the Galaxy. I think they're pretty reasonable films. I've enjoyed them. I enjoyed the first one anyway, at the very least. Second one declined in quality a little bit, but, the cast carried it. And I liked the Christmas special. But this is a shame. And this is funny because when the review embargo lifted, everyone was raving about it. It's the best film since Endgame. It's this, it's that, blah, blah, blah. Everyone just loved it. And now it's just going downhill. Downhill. Now, apparently, we'll take a look at the reviews in a minute, but it seems the harder hitting moments aren't sitting well with people because they wanted just to have a really good time, which is surprising because, we talk about these movies and we're always like, oh, they need to get a bit more serious here and there. They're too funny and blah, blah, blah. So it's an interesting one to take a look at. So here we have it here. Again, we'll take a look at the negatives, and because the good ones are very good. They think it's great. But even this is a positive one. And it says the magic is a bit worn. The emotions and themes a little too familiar. But this theme, in front of and behind the camera, fictional and in real life, is still strong enough to deliver a still pretty entertaining and crazy space adventure film. That doesn't sound really positive, but they gave it a 7 out of 10. How weird. This is a C+, but considered rotten. It says Gunn falls into the usual Marvel trap. His climax overblown and overlong in a film whose 2.5 hour running time could have easily been condensed to better overall effect. And that, along with some brutal animal cruelty, will make this rough sledding. Ooh, it's CGI animal cruelty, but maybe he's gone a bit too hard on that. Because playing with fire when you're dealing with animals, and that, it's not good. It's really not good. You can walk that line of being a little bit too, it's a bit too overindulgent. And if there is long scenes of animal cruelty, maybe that's what's putting people off. Now we have this. Again, we'll just do the negatives for now, because the positives are really positive, and I've already covered them. We say overlong, clunky, and dull. It's high on schmaltz and visual spectacle while low on laughs, wit, and palpable thrills. So that's interesting. This is someone going into it, I guess, expecting it to be funny, and then it not being funny. Or, I'd understand if someone said the jokes don't land. Then I'd understand it. This sounds like he went into it expecting it to be hilarious, and I was disappointed. It's hard to say if this is Gunn's true vision to end his trilogy, or felt caught up fitting his characters back into a universe that's now 32 films in. Interesting. So this is an interesting sort of dissection of these critics' scores, because I often wonder when the critics start to rag on Marvel films what it is that they're disliking so much, because the critics, generally speaking, love a good Marvel flick. A combination of those exploitative ads from animal shelters and the Japanese body horror endurance test Tetsuo the Iron Man. Fucking hell. That is a brutal review. We have this one. What was previously a rollicking, broadly caricatured and kid-friendly superhero series completes its trilogy with an overwrought epic stuffed with neck-breaking violence, a vicious, one-note villain, and so much animal cruelty, it felt like a sucker punch. It does seem like they're not liking the animal cruelty element. I tell you what, I like the fact that the villain is vicious. One note, not so much, but a vicious villain, finally, in the MCU. Finally. I regret to inform you that the Guardians of the Galaxy, as you know them, are dead. What remains in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 are flickering remnants of fun times, but mostly maudlin bullshit. Wow. Wow. Again, we are just looking at the negatives because I just think this is fascinating. Because they're tearing at a new one. It clumsily tries to blend mean-spiritedness and sentimentality. The new characters in this saga are hollow and horribly written. Most of the returning hero characters are often smug and irritating. Fucking hell. In James Gunn's overt attempt to make Volume 3 the most heartbreaking Guardians movie, clearly the impetus of the film, and make you feel all the feels, the writer-director just tends to overcook a lot of scenes with weepiness that feels forced. Because, again, this is not coming from someone that wants to hate this film. I actually want it to be good, and those trailers got me, man. I thought those trailers were really good. So I'm genuinely surprised, because if the trailers are cut better than the film, which I wouldn't be surprised by, because that happens very often, they need to get the trailer editors to edit a bloody film, for goodness sake. Or they just, commend the trailer editors. A clumsy, overlong series finale that never strikes a balance between the touching story at its core and the numerous moving parts hovering in that story's vicinity. Seems to be a returning trend. Or a running trend, anyway. Consistently chaotic and confusing. The film is the kind of mess that only a mother could love. Considering the amount of time that was given for Gunn to perfect the Guardians' final blow, it's incredibly disappointing that the last entry into the Guardians trilogy is its weakest link. Ooh. Cue the Sarah McLachlan music because James Gunn is trying hard to make you feel things. This ends up as a tonal mess that relies on Disney-style emotional manipulation. This honestly is really interesting. The Misfits team's constant punchlines and I'm just busting your chops dynamic have grown exhausting. They become the guy at the party who thinks he's hilarious but is actually just drunk. Half of Volume 3 is an outright drama, heavy with themes of loss and terror. It's an odd, lumbering patchwork of the film, occasionally fascinating but otherwise bloated and aimless. A lot of people saying it's bloated, too much. Solemnity, oh my god, my words today, is the guiding light here, and solemnity, oh my god, doesn't suit the Guardians when detouring through your designated corner of perfectly calibrated cosmic sloppiness starts to feel like a chore on a slog. You have a serious problem on your hands. Does the occasional emotional moment land? Sure. Do these moments wind up lost in space, floating in an oxygen-free environment with no place to land? Unfortunately, yes. Oof. It's, again, lots of people not liking it and saying the same things. And there are semi-regular flashes of Gunn brilliance here, but the plot is a mess with little sense of meaningful cause and effect behind its wrigglings. Wow. An angrier, noisier and sadder turn for the MCU, with Gunn straining for emotional manipulation as he makes his usual mess of things in the comic book realm. That sounds like he doesn't like James Gunn films anyway. This Guardians is the most downbeat of the series. It is interesting that you would choose to do that, I guess, but, sending a film off in that way, or a franchise, a trilogy off in that way, does make sense, but I can see why that would be a bit jarring for people. The second film was fun, but couldn't recapture all of the magic of the first one. By now, that magic has all but disappeared. I'm so surprised that the critics don't like it as much as this. So, slash film, an uneven, sporadically emotional conclusion to the trilogy. Honestly, a lot of people really not liking this. The film undermines its initial sense of intimacy and momentum, with a stop-and-start story structure that by and large exists to make as much room as possible for its characters' banter. These pictures have grown less cute, less charming, and less fun with each passing installment, and this one just drags as it meanders towards its overhyped lump-in-throat finale. Brutal. The critics are absolutely brutal here. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see how this lands. But let me know what you guys think. I'll be seeing this in 2 days' time on Wednesday, as it releases here in the UK. And I'll give you my fair, open, honest, unbiased review. Cheers, guys. Hit subscribe. Give the video a like and a share. Take care.